morning. My name is Fidelma Corolan. I'm an Equality Commissioner, and I have a day job working for Unison, the trade union, supporting LGBT members, doing lifelong learning and doing some industrial relations. This morning I had the pleasure of being on Nolan, on the Nolan show, to talk about the attitude survey. I don't know, some people may have heard on the way in. And I had great plans to talk about the importance of a robust evidence base to provide good information in terms of public policy development, particularly around the likes of sexual orientation strategy and that. But we started off with gay marriage. We had Lord McGuinness in, who mentioned the word bestiality in the first probably 3 sentences. And also talked about gay people being a threat to children. Now, as a lesbian, the only threat I would be to a child is if they ate what I cooked. So I probably didn't get quite as much airtime, and I don't think I got to mention the word robust evidence base at all in my Nolan interview. So I'll start off with that. I think we need a robust evidence base, and this survey gives us that. And hopefully the organisation in this room will use the information, not just in the survey, but will actually use all the statistical data, and we can make it available to make the arguments for your own constituency in terms of resources and priorities and targeting. I've been asked to talk a wee bit about people's personal responsibility around challenging prejudice, and my own personal responsibility around challenging prejudice. And we talk about society all the time. Society thinks this, society thinks that, but we are society. Everyone in this room is part of society, and that is part of that personal responsibility. Yesterday I was talking to 20 of our new stewards in Unison that were doing their training to become workplace reps. And I was talking to them about the role as a workplace rep in terms of tackling prejudice and promoting equality. And I was saying that if you're in a room where people are sitting around having coffee on a break, or they're out with a smoke, and you hear a comment that's racist or homophobic or sexist or sectarian, because somebody says, comments on what was on the telly last night, or a headline in the newspaper, or a story. And I said, if you stay silent, then you are not a trade union steward. You cannot be a trade union steward, because the role is to protect those around you, and particularly protect the most vulnerable, and speak up for the most vulnerable. And I said, even if you're not quite sure of the issue, and somebody says, they're all over here taking our jobs, which is said more often than unfortunately I would like to think, then you need to challenge that person and say, well, where did you get that information? Where did you read it? What are the statistics? And actually challenge the myths, because one of the big issues we have are the myths that are created around communities and around identity. And these myths take wings of their own and become facts. And whether it's about who's getting houses and who's not, who's scamming the social security system and who's not, who's taking all the jobs and who's not, who are threatening children and who is not. If we don't really challenge those myths personally and try and find out more about the genesis of those myths, then those myths will gather wings, and they will inform the culture that we work in and that we live in. And while to let a kind of a homophobic or sectarian comment, and it's a bit of banter, sure, they would say that, what would you expect? To let that go, that's the start. The end is genocide. The extreme end of that is the Holocaust. It is genocide, because that's where those situations started. And so we do need to take personal responsibility. And by challenging that person in the room in front of other people, also you're speaking up for some people who are invisible. Because if there's somebody in that room that's got a hidden disability, that's lesbian, gay, or bisexual, is not out, that's transgender and is not out, and you let that go, you let that comment go, well, that person will look at you, and they will look at you and think, you didn't challenge it, I'm not in a position to challenge it. So if you didn't challenge it, then you agree with it. So it is about our own personal responsibility to every opportunity we get, whether it's around the dinner table within our own families, in the pub, in workplaces. You need to challenge. And try and, if you don't have the information, try and find it out. But certainly ask the person and interrogate that person in a nice way, or maybe a not very nice way. But at least the minimum say, I find that offensive. And as a lesbian woman, if I'm in a room, people are not going to make homophobic comments when I am in the room. They're not. They know me, they know what, they won't. If I'm not in the room, they will feel much more freely able to make that jag. And I need the other people who are still in that room to protect me. So it's about how we protect the most vulnerable in society, bearing in mind that some people here are the most vulnerable in society. And also not expecting the fact if somebody is of a minority community that they will challenge all other prejudice. Because there is racism in the lesbian, gay and bisexual and transgender community. There is homophobia in the black and minority ethnic community. So it's not that if somebody has a disability, they will stand up for everybody else, or somebody is black and minority ethnic, they will stand up for everybody else. We need everybody to stand up for everybody else. In terms of the transgender and the traveller question, and the transgender question came directly as a result of engagement by the Equality Commission with members of the LGBT sector, and the huge invisibility of the transgender community, and the correlating misunderstanding about what is gender dysphoria and all those things. People just don't know. And I thought it's really interesting that travellers and transgender were identified what people had the most negative perceptions against. But in terms of statistics, the numbers of travellers in Northern Ireland and the numbers of transgender persons in Northern Ireland is statistically very small. So the chance of those 1,100 people probably personally knowing somebody from those two communities, or even having met one, is also probably statistically quite small. So they were able to have negative perceptions against these two communities, probably never having met anybody from either. So we've got to think about it. What Malachy says, where do we get our information? And certainly travellers have had a pretty bad rep in the press, for many, many years. I used to do the homophobia training with the RUC in the 90s, pre-Good Friday Agreement. And it was lesbian, gay, bisexual, travellers, disability and race. And those doing the traveller education training always got the hardest time. Always, 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 always. So I think it is about, if people are making judgments of people they've never met, then they're getting those ideas from somewhere. So how do we make sure that the right information is out there? And I know during Pride Week there is we're running an Understanding Gender Dysphoria workshop in partnership with the Oyster Group and also with YouthNet as part of Pride. And you're all invited. Just let me know you're coming so I can make sure there's enough food. But we do have to take personal responsibility to find out about, if you don't know what transgender, what a transgender person, the issues are, then go and find out. Online is a fantastic resource, well, albeit depends on which websites you look at. The other personal responsibility I think that I have is that it is about the voice. If the voice is not in the room, then it is not heard. I have a personal responsibility not just to represent the views of the lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender community because I'm a member of that community. That's not enough. If I'm in the room and someone from the black and minority ethnic community is not in that room, or somebody from the disability community is not in that room, then I have a responsibility to speak up for that community. And when they're in the room, I have a responsibility to create the space and shut up and listen. So I think it's incumbent on all of us, if we really want the society that we all claim we want to live in for ourselves and our children, and in my case, my nieces and nephews, then it's up to us to create the society. It won't happen all by itself. So I leave you with that challenge. And I shall be tweeting, so if I'm using my phone, I'm not being rude. I'm just tweeting what's coming up in the conference. Thank you very much.